This is Ireland, a land of waters, a land of clear, rich lakes where trout grow big and red-fleshed, of winding rivers draining the great central limestone plain, of rocky streams falling to the sea from lonely lochs hidden among the moors and hills of the far west. From Christmas onwards, the sea-fed Atlantic salmon ascend most of the larger rivers. They swim deep because the water is still cold and don't show themselves much. But when the angling season opens in February or March, they're lying in the pools, fresh run, strong, and ready to seize a lure worked past them. In the early months of the season, it's usually necessary to get a lure deep, close to the resting fish, and in big waters, spin usually produces most action. The bait is cast out and swings round in the current, past where the angler hopes a salmon is lying. In every reach of a river, they have their favorite lies, and local knowledge plus an eye for water is essential to success. The likely spots are carefully fished. Salmon are unpredictable. They don't feed in fresh water, but seize a lure because of curiosity or irritation, or through reflex action developed during their sea feeding and triggered off by the flashing of a bait swinging past them in the river. They must be tempted, persuaded to take. Persistence is rewarded. A salmon has taken the lure and battle is joined. Some anglers claim that the disadvantage of a tailor as against a gaff is that you must have someone to handle it for you. Well, this is a most interesting demonstration in view of that argument. And finally, a nice fish is grassed, just tipping the scale at 10 pounds. In the spring, the angler's fancy doesn't always turn to thoughts of salmon. The brown trout holds a special place in the affections of many fishermen, and wet fly fishing in early spring, when the world is waking up again, has its attractions. Indeed, trout is the favorite quarry of most Irish anglers. With 2 or 3 small and lightly dressed flies on his cast, the angler searches the rippled water where trout lie among the stones or in the eddies. He's in a state of constant expectancy, sharply watching for the swirl or pluck of a rise. Now he tries a pool further down. The flies swing round, drifting with the current. A rise, he strikes, and a trout is on. These spring river trout usually average about ½ pound. Before very long, there's another one on. A bit better this time. Now a third one. It seems to be much smaller than either of the others. I'm afraid this looks more like kidnapping than angling. Well, there's only one thing to do with a chap that size. Carefully now. He'll live to fight another day. In the big lakes, too, the wet fly takes its share of trout in spring. These big sheets of water, from 2,000 to 40,000 acres in extent, hold good fish. Fishing is done from a boat, drifting before the wind, and the flies are bigger than those used on rivers. They're cast downwind and retrieved fast or slowly according to the breeze and the wave. Here on Loch Mask in County Mayo, 2 anglers are trying their luck. They rely on tried and proven wet fly patterns: Connemara black, claret and mallard, and golden olive. Jack Stack also shows his own special contest winner, which he's named Grace Kelly. Paddy Hard feels hopeful. There's a nice wave, a mild breeze, and a broken sky. Spring is in the air and things look promising. Jack Stack gets the first one on. Michael Rowe goes into action. The average weight of trout taken on the fly in these lakes varies from a pound in some waters to as much as 4 pounds in other waters. Some lakes also hold so-called ferox trout, usually found in the vicinity of deep water, feeding mainly on fish and growing to 30 pounds in weight. These giant trout are caught mainly by trolling with large baits, however. But trout of up to 8 pounds or more are regularly taken on the fly, so the limestone angler needs plenty of line on his reel and must treat every rise to his fly with the caution necessary if his first contact with what may be a very is not to be his last contact with it. By April, the swallows have come and the trees are in leaf. Hatches of fly on the rivers have become abundant and more consistent. In the more placid streams on the limestone, the trout are taking a considerable interest in surface food. Now the dry fly comes into its own. Limestone waters are clear and limestone trout are big. However, the snags on these rich pastoral streams can be formidable. The dry fly angler finds this difficult, challenging fishing, but it's trout fishing at its best. Scanning the river, we see plenty of rising fish. There are some olives on the water, so they're probably taking olive duns. Let's pick out a likely fly. A heckled greenwell, a ginger quill. A ginger quill would be easy to see on the water, and a dab of silicone floatant will keep it riding high and dry. Bill Whiteman stalks the chosen fish carefully, judging the length of the line by false casting. Now. No, not quite in the line of the fish. Try again. Just about right this time. He has it and he's hooked. In clear water like this, you must be very gentle with the net. One false move and he's off. That's it. A nice fish. Now let's see if we can do better. Bill tries another pool, fairly free of snags, luckily enough. And there's another one on already. And it's a real fighter this time. Catching a beauty like this really makes your day's fishing worthwhile, despite the rushes and the reeds. From a limestone river to a limestone lake. Lough Sheelin, a typical lake of the Midlands. As on most Irish lakes, various bodies have been busy restocking the waters, as well as providing facilities for visiting anglers, such as signposts, landing stages, car parks, caravan sites, and so on. The hawthorns are in blossom on the lake shore, and up from the mud of the lake bed, after 2 years of larval life, the mayfly nymphs are ascending. They molt at the surface, and the green drakes ride on the water like little yachts after they emerge from the cast skins. The skins drift away forlornly, like tiny drowned ghosts. As their wings dry, the green drakes flutter off and make for the bushes, running the gauntlet of swallows and wagtails. Those that survive take refuge among the hawthorns and alders. Already the boats are out dapping. The dappers have long, light rods and light lines which the breeze will waft out ahead of the boat. Blowline dapping is a method of fishing peculiar to the big lakes of Ireland. 2 mayflies are put on a hook. When carried out by the wind, they drift or dap on the surface of the water. Even if John Reynolds had forgotten his carefully collected box of flies, he would have no worry, for in a good hatch, everything in sight becomes covered with mayfly. A swirl in the water and the flies are gone. Give the trout a moment to get hold of them, then strike. Usually the trout makes a long, deep run at first. The long rod bends over. Now he breaks the surface again. However, he's under control all the time, and Bill Whiteman soon has him in reach of the net. And this is the score for the afternoon. As evening comes, the wind falls light, then dies away. In the trees along the lake shore, the mayflies clustered in the foliage are stirring. Already, clouds of male mayflies are dancing above the trees, and the females fly up through them. Soon the females will fly out over the lake to lay their eggs. That task done, they fall on the water, wings outstretched, dead. In the evening, the dead mayflies, the spent gnats, are sucked down by the big trout, not yet satiated by the day's feeding on nymphs and green drakes. The evening calm is the dry fly angler's opportunity to lure heavy trout with an artificial spent net. A rising trout is located. Watch carefully for the rings. Lake trout have no current to bring food to them, so they cruise in search of it. The boat is handled to give the angler a chance to put his fly in the track of the feeding fish. Watch the fish rise left and right of his cast. The fish is approaching and nerves are tense. And he's taken it. During the mayfly season, the fish feed on after sunset. In fact, until it's too dark to see them anymore. When conditions are right for the spent net, this performance can go on until 3 in the morning. Next morning, in the lakeside hotels, stock is taken of the previous evening's catches. Notes are compared and lost fish bemourned. And once again, plans are made for another attack on the big trout, that during the magic fortnight of the mayfly, keep even the most hardened anglers in a perpetual state of dither, delight, and sometimes despair. And by the way, there are comfortable hotels to be found close to all angling centres in Ireland. When the hawthorn and the mayfly are no more, the game fisherman often turns from the streams and lakes of the limestone to the small moorland rivers of the west coast, where the summer salmon are running. In the solitude of these hills, salmon and trout find the primitive environment their nature needs for survival. These are livelier salmon than the spring fish of the bigger rivers. They are ready and willing to swim up from the bottom to take a lure. There's no need to go down after them with big baits. On these rivers, small flies will serve the angler's purpose better. The fly is switched out over a likely pool. The line has been greased to make it float and is mended upstream so that the fly drifts slowly. If there is no immediate response, it is worth persisting. Action! A lively salmon, a light rod, and a little river add up to thrills. Just about the same time, these fish were caught a little further up the river. The familiar brown trout and the silvery bright fish the Irish angler calls white trout. Summer showers bring welcome rain. A small fresh down the streams brings the white or sea trout up from the salt water into the coastal lakes and rivers. These are not big fish, but they're the pluckiest, most dashing of all the salmon tribe. And there's no better way of catching them than with fascinating names like Ross, Watson's Fancy, Bloody Butcher. The rise of a sea trout to a fly is quick and vigorous. It plays with spirit and fire out of all proportion to its size. Lake fishing for sea trout is probably one of the most enjoyable experiences an angler can have, something to cherish for many a long day afterwards. However, you can't keep Bill Whiteman away from the hill streams. Danny Goldrick is in trouble. He's caught the weir as well as the fish. But Bill has his own fish to look after. Unfortunately, it's too late to help Danny now. But at least he did get his hook back. Salmon, brown trout and nomadic sea trout have frequented Irish waters since the glaciers retreated at the end of the Ice Age. But in a few experimental waters, such as this lake in County Sligo, rainbow trout have been stocked in recent years also. Natives of the west coast of North America, rainbow trout are a colorful, hard-hitting, hard-fighting fish. They've done very well in some of the places where they were introduced. The game fish, the salmon tribe, demand clean waters. In the rivers, streams and lakes of Ireland, fed by the showers of the Atlantic, tempered by the Gulf Stream, largely unspoiled by the industrial progress that has cost us so much of what is best in nature, the salmon tribe find conditions to their liking and flourish accordingly. For this reason, Ireland has much to offer to the game fisherman.